Should you sell or rent your property before moving to Spain? Now, this is going to be one of the toughest and hardest decisions you guys will get to make because it can either cost you or save you tens of thousands of dollars in capital gain taxes, both in Spain and in the US. In today's video, we're going to talk about all the options that you have, depending on your situation. We're going to talk about our situation, what we did, if we regret anything, if we could have done anything differently knowing what we know now. So let's get started. Now, before, guys, if you can please hit the like button and help share this video to other people who are in similar situations and who are just looking for information. Also, this is the most important thing of the video. I am not a tax professional by any means. I do have some knowledge because I have talked to tax professionals here in Spain and in the US. But as you guys know, tax laws change rapidly. So before making the decisions, make sure you guys talk to a tax professional both in your city that you're moving to in Spain, because tax laws may differ, and a tax professional always in the US. So let's get started. Now let's talk about my situation. So we have two rental properties in the States, like I mentioned. We have one in Tennessee and the other one in South Florida. And the one in South Florida was actually our home property. Now the interest rate in that home property is a 2.2. So we didn't even think about selling because our mortgage is low and we can rent it for high. So we had a pretty good cash flow considering the mortgage is low and the rent is high. So we didn't even consider selling that property. We actually considered selling the one in Tennessee and use that money to help us with the move. Long story short, that property in Tennessee did not sell. It was empty for about 10 months because the previous tenants were smoking in the house and we had to do a bunch of stuff and it just didn't sell. So we were paying mortgage for about 10 months in that property with no income coming. And obviously we didn't use that money for the move. We had to use other means. So after 10 months, we rented that property back again. And then our main one in Boca is still renting as of today. But could we have done anything differently knowing what we know now? We probably would have sold that house. Probably. I do go back and forth. Let me know down in the comments if this is a good idea, because it just hurts me so bad that just selling a property that it's in a good place, in a good neighborhood, and it's a 2.2 interest rate, knowing now that if you're below 6, you're golden. And I have a 2.2 there. So, but again, we could have used that money if we were to sell that house in Boca with a good, nice equity, and we could have bought here something in Spain. So now let's talk about that whole process. If you want to buy something in Spain, but you want to buy before looking at the property, before even set foot in the country, before talking to a realtor, before anything, good luck. It's extremely hard. There's a lot of paperwork involved, even if you are in country. So I can just only imagine if you're out of the country and you're trying to buy something remotely. I believe that's going to be extremely hard. But let's talk about what you guys came here as far as taxes. Now, if you lived in that primary home in the States for at least 2 out of the last 5 years, you don't pay capital gain taxes in the States, right? When you file the taxes, due to I think it's IRC section 121, you can exclude capital gains when selling your main home if lived in the home as your primary residence for at least 2 years, those 2 years must fall within a 5-year period before the sale, like I just mentioned, and you haven't used the exclusion in the last 2 years. So if all those things apply to you, which apply to us, you don't pay capital gain taxes in the US when selling the property. So let's say you sold the property and you have $100,000 in the bank account when you move to Spain. That $100,000 is free and clear of taxes, and Spain doesn't really care about that because you were not a tax resident of Spain at that moment, right? Now, let's say you decide, like we did, to rent the property, move to Spain, and then you want to sell it when you're in Spain. It all depends if at the time of the sale you are a tax resident in Spain. How do you consider to be a tax resident in Spain? If you are in country for I think it's 183 days out of the year at the time of the sale. So let's say in 2025, we spend the whole 2025 here in Spain. So if we were to sell the house in 2025 last year, this year now we would have paid capital gain taxes on it. So you are considered a tax resident if you spend 183 days, I think it's about 6.5 months in country. There's a couple of things you can do if you know for a fact that if you sell that house in the States and you are a tax resident in Spain, but you want to buy a property here in Spain with that money, there's something you can do. It's called the rule of 2 + 2 + 2. Now, this is at the time that I talked to the tax professionals. Again, if it may have changed, but Maybe I think now it's 3 years, but you go ahead and do your own research on that. So you pretty much have to be living in that house in the States for at least 2 years. The same thing as the exclusion for not paying capital gain taxes in the States. So 2 years living in that house as your primary, and then you have to have 2 years to reinvest that money in a primary house here in Spain. So basically, you sell your house, right, in the States. You have 2 years to reinvest that money in a house here in Spain. Now, when you reinvest that money in a house in Spain, it can be for an investment property, for a vacation home. It has to be for a primary, and you have to live in that house a minimum of 2 years as of the time that I talked to my tax specialist. Again, it may have changed, but that's pretty much the gist of it. So you sell the house, your primary, in the States. You get that money. You don't have to put it in an escrow. You don't have to do nothing like that. You do have to report it when you do the taxes here, but again, if you document that it's going to be reinvested in a property here, which is going to be your primary for at least 2 years, you're good. You don't pay capital gains in the States because you have lived in that property for 2 out of the last 5 years, and you don't pay capital gain taxes in Spain. Hopefully that makes sense. I know it can get a little complicated, but hopefully I'm making sense. Now, so let's say that you rent out the property in the States, you move to Spain, and you just leave the property rented for about 3-4 years, and then you decide you want to sell it and reinvest it here in a property in Spain. Now, this is where things get a little complicated because you may not apply for that rule of the 2 + 2 + 2. So again, you rent out the property for 4 years, so you're probably not gonna apply no more or qualify no more for that exclusion tax rule in the States. So let's say you already know you're prepared to pay capital gain taxes in the States. But again, capital gain taxes, 15%, whatever it is not even close to the 28, 27% in Spain, depending on where you are. So whatever, you know you're gonna pay capital taxes in the US, and you're thinking, you know what, at least I'm gonna get the rest of the money and apply it here in Spain and not gonna pay taxes in Spain because I'm gonna reinvest it. It may not work like that because seeing that Spain may look at that property now as not your primary, but as an investment property because of the past 3-4 years you've been renting it out. And now just because you're selling it, Spain might be like, it was your primary before, but now it has been all these years, it has been an investment property, so it doesn't qualify. So it's really depending on the Hacienda, on the tax people here in Spain, depending on your area. So before you do any of those big movements, big decisions, you make sure you talk to somebody who can somewhat guarantee what you're looking for. So I mean, that's pretty much it. Those are the options really. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to buy a house here in Spain, if you just want to rent it out, if you don't want any hassles, because believe me, tenants can be a hassle. If you guys have rental properties, if you've never had rental properties and you just think you're gonna move to Spain, you say you bought the house in 2019 and right now it has gotten up like 40%, and you're like me, you have a good interest rate and the cash flow is gonna be pretty good, but you've never had a tenant before, it can be somewhat of a hassle. Not only a tenant, but the property managers. You have to have a good property managers, that you guys have a good rapport, that you can trust them, because again, being in another country, everything makes everything a little more complicated, and things get bad like this. And you not being in the States, or you not being in the same area, it can get complicated. So if you don't want to deal with none of that, just sell the house, come over here in the city that you want. Once you're sure that when you move to, you're good to go, then use that money and just buy a house or buy an apartment or buy wherever you want to buy. Or you can just leave that money in the bank and that's it, because at the end of the day, you don't have to worry about taxes in Spain with that money, because you were not a tax resident at the time you sold the house before moving to Spain. Hopefully that makes sense, guys. If you guys have any questions, if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe, like the video, give me right in the comments. I would answer to pretty much all the comments. If you're new here, I'm gonna answer to your comments. If you're a regular, you already know. I don't think I'm missing anything else. No, I don't think I'm missing anything else. What I was saying about, do we regret it? I think sometimes we regret not selling the house in Boca because we just don't have to worry about it. And my wife wants to buy a house here, but I don't know, man. It just depends on your life. If you really see yourself being here for the next 20, 30 years, Us, we do not, because we have other plans. Well, that will be a video for another day. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. I'll see you guys in the next one, and deuces.